So today we will see how polity decides your fate in civil services. It is the bridge that will decide whether you are writing mains or not. Right? I'll give you some data. In 2017, there were 22 questions, that is 44 marks. 44 marks from one subject out of 100 that you will need to clear preliminary examination. That is the average marks that you'll need to clear preliminary examination, and 44 marks were from polity only. All right. In 2018, there were 13 questions, that is 26 marks. 2019, there were 15 questions, that is 30 marks. 2020, there were 16 questions, that is 32 marks. So you see how 30% of the scoring of the number you need to clear the examination. If you get polity right, you can score 30% of the numbers and the marks that you need to clear preliminary examination, right? So one subject give you 30%, and the best part about polity is it is very concise. All right. So since 2011, if we see, there are 15 to 18% questions. Means 15 to 18 questions on an average comes from polity, which roughly translates into 30 to 36 marks out of 100 marks you would need to clear preliminary civil services exams from polity. You see how massively important it is. I'll quickly go through how polity is such a vital subject. See, what is the bright side of polity? It has a very defined syllabus. It's not like history where you don't know what to study. You can study 6 months ancient history, you can study 6 months art and culture, and still be things left to study. That's not the case with polity. It has a very defined syllabus. If you read 6th to 12th NCRTs properly and you understand it with references from books such as D.D. Basu and Lakshmikant, you are in. There cannot be a question beyond your knowledge. You may or may not understand it, is a different thing, but nothing will come beyond your syllabus or whatever you have read. That's the best part about polity. What is the second thing? Easy to remember, since it's not entirely fact based. There are functionings, there are rules, there are conventions. Alright, it's not fact based that this date this thing happened. Yes, there are certain facts, but they are not very important from UPSC's point of view. You need to understand the functioning, and if once you understand functioning, you may not have to mug it up over and over again. That's again the second most good thing about polity. Third and most vital thing, even if you're optional is not PSIR, your entire GS2 is polity. Apart from GS3, that policy coverages, apart from the essays, apart from all other things, and apart from the job that you are going to get if you clear civil service, every single thing require a good command over polity. So a strong polity will always have a very vital role in your success in this examination and the job that you'll get after the examination. But there are a few dark sides of the polity too. Let's quickly go through that. The only con is tricky language. Yes, polity can be very tricky because its language is very tricky. If somebody who has deep understanding of the subject frames a question in a particular way, it can twist your mind and force you to think in a particular, perhaps in a wrong way. And that's exactly where most people commit silly mistakes. Twist of language can make all the options look correct, and it will impact your chances of writing mains, because more often than not you'll click the wrong answer because all of them are partially correct in itself. None of them are entirely wrong. So elimination method and all these things go out of the scope. You'll have to have very clear understanding of the subject to get to the right option. That is the only con, and that is why I'm again stressing understanding and clarity is very important if you want to clear civil services. It's not about fact mugging. All the coaching institutes will tell you, give you random notes and files and PDFs to mug up certain things. No, please go through previous 5 years question paper. You need to understand the criteria. You need to understand what is happening. Let's have a quick look at some of the questions that have come in the previous year preliminary examination. In the context of polity, which one of the following would you accept as the most appropriate definition of liberty? So the first thing you do when you see a question is mark down the keywords. The keywords here are most appropriate and definition of liberty. What does most appropriate mean? It simply means all 4 answers can be true, but they may not be the most appropriate answer, right? So you need to select the most appropriate answer despite of all the options being correct. Definition of liberty is what we have to look into. So let's start with A, protection against tyranny of political rulers. Yes, it is a definition of liberty, but only a definition of political liberty. It does not constitute economic or social liberty. So it is true, but partially true. So it's not the most appropriate definition of liberty. Absence of restraint. Yes, it is also a definition of liberty, but it is only negative liberty. It does not contain the positive aspects of liberty. Positive aspects of liberty in the sense, law and order system in your city where police comes and stops the goons from harassing you is positive liberty. They are actively doing something to make sure that your liberty is not hampered. That is called positive liberty, right? And not unnecessary, police and the administration not unnecessarily hindering your personal life or your work experience is negative. When there are things they are not doing to make sure that you enjoy your liberty is negative liberty. When they are doing something to ensure that your liberty is protected, that is positive liberty. So in this sentence, it is only covering the negative aspect of liberty. So it is true, but again, partially true. So is it the most appropriate definition of liberty? No. Opportunity to do whatever one likes. Whatever one likes, as we have already discussed, simply means that someone else's liberty is good as long as it does not hamper your liberty, or your liberty is valid as long as it does not hamper someone else's liberty. It's like your liberty to listen to music is not absolute because it may hamper your neighbor's right to peaceful living, right? So whatever one likes is not an appropriate definition of liberty. Yes, it is also a definition of liberty, but not the most appropriate by any means. So we have only one option left, but we'll go into that. Let's see. Opportunity to develop oneself fully. When do you have the opportunity to develop yourself fully? When you have political liberty, social liberty, when there are no caste obligations and no other social limitations on your growth perspectives, personal growth, financial growth, or whatever, every type of growth. Economic liberty, where you have the state support and enough opportunity to make yourself financially or economically independent. That is economic liberty. And political liberty. If all of them are combined, then you are in a position where you can develop yourself fully. So what is the most appropriate answer to this question? D, right? So see how a very simple question is very tricky if you do not understand the question. And trust me, with exam pressure, these questions make or break your chance of getting into the civil services, because I can assure you that 99% people get this incorrect, right? Absence of restraint is perhaps the most common answer aspirants will take, but that's not how things work. Okay, you have to have clarity of understanding. Let's see just one another question here. The power of Supreme Court of India to decide disputes is again the keyword, between center and state falls under its. So Supreme Court has 4 types of jurisdictions, right? Rightly stated here. Which one covers disputes between center and state? Now, if there are 2 possibilities here, one, that you know that it falls under original jurisdiction of Supreme Court. Center state disputes fall under original jurisdictions of state of Supreme Court, right? So you know that. But there are a billion topics, and I'm sure there will be questions where you have faint ideas and not exact ideas. And what in that situation, how would you do the question? Let's see. Writ jurisdiction. Writ jurisdiction. If you read Polity, if you're a regular follower of the channel, if you would know that it's only about enforcement of fundamental rights under Article 32. Supreme Court issues writ jurisdiction, which has nothing to do with center-state relations. It's only about enforcement of fundamental rights. Appellate jurisdiction. Appellate jurisdiction are of 4 types. That is, you appeal in civil matter, or appeal in criminal matter, you appeal in constitutional matter. You go to Supreme Court if you think there's a constitutional violation, or there's a civil case or a criminal case. And 4th is appeals by special leave. Appeals by special leave simply means that Supreme Court surpasses the High Court and lower court's jurisdiction and directly wants to attend to the case. So these are the 4 appellate jurisdictions that Supreme Court have, which has nothing to do with center and state relations. Alright, so this is also not the option. Advisory jurisdiction, right? Advisory jurisdiction, Supreme Court has only 2 ways that it can advise the president when he seeks any advice from Supreme Court. First scenario, if president thinks there is a question of public importance that he needs to discuss from Supreme Court, he can approach Supreme Court for advice. In first instance, the Supreme Court has all the discretionary power to not give advice. Okay? But in second instance, where the dispute arises out of pre-constitutional treaties or agreements, in that case, if president seeks Supreme Court's advice, the Supreme Court is bound to give advice. But in both the cases, the advice is only advice. It's not binding. So the president may or may not take that advice, and it will not amount to contempt of court, right? So advisory jurisdiction also does not relate to center and states relation. So that's also not the original jurisdiction, as against it is the only option left that you can simply mark correct. So this is an idea where if you don't know exactly factual based, but you understand the outline of the subject, you can get these correct. And trust me, the polity questions of previous 5 years are all about whether you understand the functioning of the system, functioning of the bodies or the judiciary or the union and the state. If you know that, you can connect the dots, you'll get the answer correct. But if you have mugged up facts like fundamental rights, articles, TPSP and all that, you will struggle to connect the dots, and more often than not, you will click on the wrong option, which will hamper your chances of being selected in the for the mains writing, right? So this is how we are supposed to tackle.